Good afternoon, brewers and brewing teams. My name's Matt Kirkegaard, editor of Australian Brews News, and welcome to another live stream guided tasting hosted by Hop Products Australia. To celebrate their range of flowable and fully dissolvable hop products, HPA has teamed up once again with the team at Beer Cartel and a host of great Australian local breweries to bring you a limited edition mix pack of 8 beers made with liquid hops. To discuss these, I'm joined by Owen Johnston, HPA's Head of Sales and Marketing. Welcome, OJ. Good to see you again.
G'day. Thanks, Matt. We sure do love our Aussie hops, but that's not all we have to offer. HPA also supply a range of liquid bittering, anti-foam, haze, aroma and flavour hop products. And, the purpose of the pack this year is to demonstrate the performance of these products in a range of beer styles and get brewers thinking about how they can use them to become more efficient, more sustainable, and hopefully more profitable.
That's been a huge change in mindset, hearing those words like efficiency, because if you go back 15 years ago, we were debating definitions of craft beer, and brewers probably didn't embrace the benefits that products like this can bring to the brew house.
Yeah, it's definitely been, liquid products have been present for a long time, and they've had some sort of negative connotations. They've had some impressions of being the remit of the big guys and cheating and stuff like that. But even sort of words that resonate like synthetic, sort of casting a long shadow on advanced products. But really, in the last few years, we've seen a really meaningful step change in the quality of the manufacturing and I don't want to sound like a dork, but the statement of benefits that these products can actually deliver and what they do deliver has really come forward a long way. So it's on trend in a lot of ways, and the products are stacking up really nicely.
And we're going to hear a lot about how the products are stacking up for brewers in the brew house. But before we do, I'm going to introduce our co-host, and that is, and she is now this is an impressive list of credentials: certified Cicerone, beer educator, former brewer, and cheesemonger, Lindsy Greig. Welcome back, Lindsy. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. Great to see you again. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if we're going to have beers on a Friday, you are going to make sure that we have something to eat with it. And so you've paired some great comestibles for us to have with our great beers.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm kind of HPA's resident snack queen. I'm really just here to help everyone know that a great pairing doesn't have to be complicated. It can happen with any items that you can find absolutely anywhere. And that's 100% the intent of all of these pairings. What I'm actually looking for when I do these pairings is to emphasize the HPA product that's in the beer. So that's what I really want to elevate and bring out. But real quick, there are a few simple rules when we're doing pairings that you might want to think about. So the first one is cut. So we're going to be thinking about cream cutting through spicy flavors. There's also complement, which to me, being an American, would be like peanut butter and jelly, or contrast, which is sweet and spicy. So those are some things to think about as you're going through the pairings. If you have the pairings with your team, if you're enjoying them alongside the beer, people often want to know whether or not they should have the beer first, have the snack first. What do you do? I think you need to get to know each individual item on its own. So get to know the beer, then get to know the snack, and then put them together. Do the beer and the snack and the snack and the beer and back and forth, and find what works for you. I also recommend saving a little bit of your snacks and putting them with different beers. Have some experimentation, see what works and what doesn't. And also message me about it, because I'm interested and I always want to learn.
We might. How will we message you, or how will we stay in contact during the live stream? On socials?
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Probably just at my, I don't know, Talk Beardy to me. You can message me on Instagram.
BEARDYME from memory.
Yes, Beardy, like BEERDY to me.
Beautiful. So we can give some feedback. But I just want to pick up on one of the things you said, because when we talk about in the world of wine, or even in beer, we can overcomplicate pairings, and it's for a good reason, trying to elevate the experience. But it's just how whatever food you have goes with the beer that you have, isn't it? Rather than trying to elevate the experience on every occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as humans, we're always looking for the best, the best, the best. But a lot of times the best can actually be something that you picked up at the servo. It doesn't have to be this, $125 pairing dinner. And although those are great and have their place, things like this show that you can just have a good time wherever you are, with whatever's available to you.
That sounds great. Now, OJ, there are a lot of brewing crews working at home. You're interested in their feedback as a result of this live stream.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching this with your crew in the brewery, don't forget to complete the feedback survey by uploading a team tasting photo to go in the draw to win a long table lunch for up to 12 people among the hop bones in Tasmania. You all should have got one of these little cards. It's got a QR code on it. Go and fill in the survey. Send us a pic of you and your crew. Last year, Dale and the crew from Sunshine Brew had a great day out, and next year it could be you.
Now, we might move on to the first pairing. Before we speak to the brewer, we might get, and I'm just about to pour my first beer, which is the Cosmic Crush American Pilsner. I'm really looking forward to trying this one, being a great fan of Pilsners. Lindsay, King Island Triple Cream Brie, which is always a great match with beer, and Captain's Table Water Crackers. Talk us through it, and was the crackers specifically chosen, or would any cracker do?
So water crackers are important because they have kind of a neutral flavor. I wouldn't do something like cracked black pepper Savoys, just because that's don't do a flavored cracker because that's gonna change everything. But triple cream brie, so specifically King Island Dairy, it is an Australian triple cream brie. I think when we're looking at cheeses, it's supposed to differentiate, like especially with bries, it's important to differentiate between what an Australian triple cream brie tastes like and a French triple cream brie, because they do have different flavor profiles, or even just a standard brie cheese. Some of the French brie cheeses, you get really strong cauliflower notes, and we don't really get that in Aussie triple creams or Aussie brie cheeses. They're a little more neutral flavored. So water cracker, just a plain cracker for this to kind of to be honest, I'm not even having it with a cracker. I'm just gonna.
I have a friend who is a cheese expert and a cheese presenter and a large importer of cheese. And in a situation like this, we are accustomed to using a cracker for our cheese, but he does make a point of saying it's a cheese tasting, not a cracker tasting. So if you want to just have the cheese by itself, that's the best way to do it. Now, you are recommending anyone that's playing at home to have a sip of the beer first, because it's a beer tasting, then the cheese, and then going back to the beer to see how the flavor of the beer changes with the two. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Take the aroma in first when you're tasting the beer. Hopefully you're putting it in a nice glass with some curvature in it to capture the aromas. As I say that, as I'm holding my wedge. So hopefully you have it in a nice glass. Give it a nice good sniff. Kind of think about it. It's important that we're thinking while we're drinking. I know that's not always fun, but it's important to do. Get to know your beer and then have it alongside the cheese. Now, for me, what I think works about this pairing, and I'm going to say it again, I'm trying to intensify the mandarin character of the hops of the Eclipse spectrum that's in this beer. So I'm really trying to bring out some more sweet, juicy mandarin characters. And I do think that the brie kind of helps that show up a little bit more.
Oh, and this beer, I'm getting a lot of mandarin and just a really gentle bitterness. OJ, talk us through the Eclipse spectrum just before we bring Sean Blissett in, the brewer of the beer.
Of course. So Spectrum is one of them, probably the penultimate release recently. It's really quite new for us. It's liquid hop edition, specifically designed for the cold side. So attributes like high dispersion in that challenging sort of liquid matrix that is that cold, acidic, medium that is that beer in that tank. So really some of the CO2 base extracts don't disperse that well, and of course, on the hot side and for bittering in particular, they need the boil, they need some turbulence, some agitation to be effective. So Spectrum is of a lower alpha. Off the top of my head, I think the range is somewhere between 20 and 25% alpha in the finished sort of standardized Spectrum packs, and but really what we're looking for is the oil profile and the elevated oil content that it brings. So fully dispersible, no beer losses in tank bottoms or in hop mass soaking up beer. So really targeting that extra yield of beer in keg at the end of the day.
It's wonderful. Now's probably a good time to bring Sean Blissett in. And Sean, congratulations on this beer. It's a little bit like the having the Christmas packs all opened this afternoon, where I've not gotten to try anything. I'm trying them as everybody else does. But this is a delightful beer. Tell me about the inspiration for it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hey, I love the hoppy American Pilsner style, if that's a style. I guess it is this year. Leaning in on hop character with a lager, and trying to steer it towards a more hoppy profile. I guess the lager lends itself to doing that if you've got a nice clean fermentation profile, and you can go crazy with the hop selection. We tried to keep it pretty as close to the cleanest kind of hop profile that we could, and not have too much wildly tropical character, and focus more on the citrus side of things.
I'm certainly getting that, and zesty mandarin is in the show notes that I've just turned to, but it was definitely what I was picking up with the lovely soft melon character as well.
Yeah, that's I think that's a big tip of the hat to Eclipse for sure. That's a beautiful hop that when used right, it does have some really has a varied spectrum of flavors, not playing on the product itself, but it does show itself in a bunch of really nice ways.
How do you find using the advanced hop products over some of the more traditional hop products when you're making a beer like this?
To be completely honest, I have used them in the past and never really thought to myself that this is bringing anything more to the beer. I always kind of, and I've used a bunch of them thinking that there was going to be that kind of light bulb moment saying this is it, this is that new flowable product that's going to give me 110% yield and have the most incredible true to style hop character. But in all honesty, I use Spectrum Eclipse on this beer, and I was blown away by how true to style it was and how easy it was to use. We just threw it in a sous vide little bucket, got it up to about, we only got it up to like 40 degrees, and then just threw it straight in the fermenter after we'd yeasted off, and 100%. There's no hop loss. There's we yielded as close with a centrifuge. Even a centrifuge won't give you 100% yield in a tank, but with no dry hop other than Spectrum, it came out as close as you could to what came out of the heat exchanger. So I was impressed, and also, yeah, as I said, true to style. Absolutely, it was fantastic.
That must be a huge plus when we're hearing so much about the cost pressures and how important efficiency is at the moment, to hear those sorts of outcomes using a product like this.
I 100% like we have, as I said, a centrifuge that we bought that for, and we might get a few kegs here and there, but the amount of hops that you need in a modern hopped beer to be presented as hop forward, you're just dumping hops, and you're dumping beer with it 90% of the time. So for this to have no physical hop matter that's going to lose that extra keg or two in a bar and in a brew house. It makes a hell of a difference.
That must be great for you to hear, OJ, because that's one of the selling points that you have for a product like this, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it really is. But to be honest, I think the real take home, there's lots of stuff I like in there, but the real take home is the actual flavor profile and the true to type reflections on how Sean's described the actual flavor performance. Because I think personally that's where some of the previous generation of liquid products didn't really stand up. You know, they might have said it was variety specific or something like that, and it just didn't quite connect with the brewer's understanding of what that hop was. So it's really, for me, such an important entry point to say that the Eclipse Spectrum tasted like you would have expected it to be. You know, it tasted like Eclipse, right? That's a very strong start.
Yeah.
Sean, is it easier? I mean, a hop should taste like the hop, and I'm just a beer writer, not a brewer. How hard is it to get the consistency in hop usage and get the beer coming out tasting the way that you want it to?
Yeah, hey, it's a lot of it is your processes and your fermentation monitoring and the care that you take during and after fermentation. But I think that the consistency, especially if you know how much you're going to be yielding over a bunch of brews, you can dose, you know, to the mill if you know what your dose rate is on a liquid hop. You know how much you're going to lose every time, and then you can dial in. You know, maybe you need to add a little bit more of the Spectrum, or if you're not using Spectrum, how much more pellet. But that's an incredible inconsistency. It's great to have a number that you can set your watch to, especially in packaging operations and the cellar side of things, to know exactly what's coming out and what you need to forecast for. And especially when you know, we're all working with varying levels of quality of brewer. You know, some are taking that little bit that they're forcing themselves to you know, change some things in the brew house to yield a bit more that they might be, you know, still learning. It's all just, you know, how much more we can take out of our breweries, and if we can get a few extra bucks here and there or save a few extra dollars. We're all in a position at the moment in this economic climate to try and do that. That's for sure.
One of the other challenges for brewers these days is the rapid product development cycle, where you very rarely have a central core range, and it's consistent new product development. How helpful is a product like this when you are going, well, this time I'm going to make a hoppy American Pilsner, next week I'm going to make something completely different?
Yeah, it just opens up that playbook a little bit more, I think, with quality flowable hop products, and you know, I think, and knowing what we do, the breweries that are putting out rapid fires, the margin for error for those guys is so small, and every batch needs to be, you know, selling quickly. You know, the new, you know, a new set of cans and boxes and labels and marketing for every new release. Again, it's a great way of having something new to present to the consumer, and also especially, and it's the whole idea of this pack is to show off that we've got, you know, a bunch of new toys and expressions of varying hops, and gives you another another option to blend with, I guess, as well, if you know, leaning on hoppy styles.
Well, Sean, thank you for joining us today. Congratulations on the Cosmic Crush American Pilsner featuring Eclipse Spectrum. I think it's a banger. It's going down probably a little bit too nicely when I've still got another hour and a half on mic.
Thanks for putting me on first, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy the rest of this. Thanks, HPA, for having us.
And we might welcome Lindsay back. Lindsay, how did you go with the beer and the cheese?
Well, I had a great time.
Oh, sorry, I should have warned you to make sure that you didn't have a mouthful of cheese.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. I'm gonna try not to, bite into a wedge of cheese again, in front of everybody, showing off my habits. Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed that beer. So kudos.
I didn't have the cheese, unfortunately. I just had the beer. So what did you notice about the pairing?
Yeah, it just brings out a bit more of a sweet Mandarin character, really. I think that's ultimately what came through on it. Yeah.
OJ, how about you? Did you get the chance to pre-taste these in your lofty position?
This is some of the best homework of the job, right? You get to get into this stuff ahead of time and have a look. But I definitely agree with that comment that Lindsay makes about bringing out the Mandarin. It was actually quite noticeable. The other thing I find quite fascinating is the change in like mouthfeel and the texture. Sometimes the methods by which we increase mouthfeel in beer, they start to skew a beer or a recipe over to have to deal with other things like higher residual sugars or more booze or something like that to pump that mouthfeel up. One of the after effects of the cheese is to really plump out that mouthfeel without any of the baggage that kind of richness brings in a beer. So I quite enjoy that change.
And I'm finding just even the beer by itself, it's got a lovely crisp character to it, but then it's got a luscious melon flavor to it that just gives a really soft rounding. So it's a really lovely, drinkable beer.
Matt, I too am a huge fan of beer by itself as well.
Well, I'm a huge fan of beer with cheese. I think another thing I want to bring out about this beer and cheese pairing is just that the great thing about beer with cheese is the carbonation to scrub the palate. And I know I didn't mention that earlier, but especially with something like a triple cream brie that does have so much residual, so much fat in it. I mean, it's called triple cream for a reason. The beer is really there to scrub the palate clean, which is quite refreshing and nice.
Terrific. Well, maybe we can start with the next beer, and we'll shortly speak with Alex Grant, who's the head brewer of Hobart Brewing Company. But you've paired Chris's hummus and Alina's pita crisps. Yeah.
So this is a really fun pairing. I think that for me, hummus is very much a healthy summer treat. I like hummus with some olive oil on it and a little bit of lemon or citrus kind of over the top as well. And that acidity really adds some balance, the citrus acidity. So that's what I was really looking to do with this pairing. I was kind of focusing in on the citrus kind of qualities that are found in this beer, which is so good. Revisiting it today, it's absolutely delicious. Nice lean body, really bright kind of citrus rind, and the beer by itself has quite a lot of bitterness. However, when you add it with the hummus, the bitterness kind of subdues. The hummus brings out more of the citrus, and it just accomplishes exactly what I wanted to accomplish with it.
Terrific. Well, we might bring in Jared Boss and have a quick chat with him. We got there we go. Jared, congratulations. Talk us through your now we've got the hazy
Alex up first, Matt. Yeah. Alex up first. Alex is up first.
Alex is up first, sorry. Sorry, Alex. Sorry, I was jumping ahead. We've got Alex and another West Coast, another Pilsner, Wavelength West Coast Pilsner, featuring Flex, Citra, and Vic Secret Spectrum.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, Matt. So with this, I guess with this beer, we really tried to focus on showcasing the innovative hop products. So making a really nice, simple beer that has all that room to kind of let those products shine. We added Flex, which is a product we hadn't used before, to just bitter it up to about 20 BUs. Super simple malt, just Pilsner and a bit of Carapils, and then a tiny bit of Mandarin of Bavaria towards the end of the boil, just to try and get a bit of that New World noble hop character, kind of as a place to let the citrus character from the new Spectrum product somewhere to kind of base upon and then shine. Anyway,
And
hopefully.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What was the inspiration for a Pilsner? We've had 2 beers and 2 Pilsners. It's certainly a different tasting than we may have expected, even 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's something that I really enjoy, that kind of the way that the beer industry and especially consumers at the moment are tending towards maybe a bit more nuanced flavor, balanced flavor, maybe I say. It doesn't always have to be like the biggest, most intense flavor. And I also thought that we've made a few beers at Spectrum, mostly in IPA, and it's always been with quite a lot of pellet usage as well, which kind of made it hard to say exactly what the Spectrum was doing. So putting something that was just super simple, throwing a shit ton of Spectrum, maybe too much, at a beer.
Is that a metric shit ton, just checking?
Yeah, I checked back today and it did actually go above the recommended use rate. And I was like, oh, that's probably why it tastes like that.
It tastes like what? How do you describe?
I think it tastes like, well, that's a good question. I think it's got a very, maybe true to style, but maybe one-dimensional character. It's really full on. I think in the future where I'd use it again is in conjunction with a lot of pellet usage as well. It's really, as OJ was saying before, and Sean as well, it's about, I guess, especially when you head towards like where some breweries are going, 20, 30, 40 gram a litre dry hop. If you can get even 2 extra kegs out of a batch, even 3, that's a massive, massive benefit. So yeah.
OJ, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Alex's description of the way he's sort of conceptually put a beer together to give things space to shine, like space to actually not be cluttered up by other flavor drivers. So, let's keep in mind the purpose of the pack and a lot of these like showcase collaborations where you got this real conundrum where you want to give the product enough room to shine and you want to show what the product can do. And you don't want to pull all the other levers that you've got in terms of flavor drivers. So it's quite a simple malt bill. I would say, Alex tried to communicate there that he showed some restraint in the dose rates, but I reckon the dose rates are pretty high in there. So, let's see what the dose rates in some of the unrestrained beers are like. So again, like I think in terms of the purpose from our point of view about the demonstration of hop performance in aroma and flavor, this beer is a good example of what is achievable. And I do sort of resonate with the final comments there, Alex, about layering. If you're going to pull one of these products in the future for, not a one-off, for instance, or something like that, they don't necessarily need to be single hop product recipes. Like layering in other hops for different layers of flavor is just, that's absolutely par for the course, I would say.
When you talk about the flavor, the impact of the flavor on this, we are talking about a West Coast Pilsner, and I'm not sure whether to throw this to Alex or you, OJ, or get both of you to comment. If I was reading on the tin, West Coast Pilsner, given the ideas that West Coast throws up, I would have thought that this sits fairly squarely in the flavor profile that I'd be expecting, both from a Pilsner, but then also a West Coast version of the style.
I'll go first, Alex. I agree. You know, you can't always comment on your own beer, Alex. You know. Oh yes, I did a good job there. Yeah, I agree, and I actually had that thought, and it was really interesting to see the two pilsners back to back because they're quite different interpretations and different purposes of what they were trying to achieve. And I actually did think that the prefix on West Coast Pilsner was actually accurate and quite communicative. So in terms of that challenge to conceive of a beer and a beer profile and deliver on it and already have the artwork signed off by someone to go on the can, better make sure this thing's got some West Coast character about it, you know.
Actually, I'll throw that to Alex as well, because when you are doing something like this, that is a bit of a specialty beer, you don't get to have multiple iterations to dial it in. How valuable is it working with a product that you know, like the Spectrum, to really give your best showing?
Oof, yeah, it's definitely a tough one. And I guess to add to that, I actually wrote the recipe and then left and was on holiday for 2 months. So didn't brew the beer and arrived back and they were packaging it. But I guess throwing back to the West Coast Pilsner, Hoppy Pilsner, New World Pilsner, all variations on the theme, I guess. But the way that I read into it and looked at it is that I wanted to display some West Coast hop character, like hops from that Pacific Northwest region, or at least that kind of touch of resinous fruit character, maybe from the Vic Secret and the Citra. Using products like this in a once-off is very hard. I think making one-off beers in general is pretty hard to get a balance right, especially when you're looking for a bit more nuance in the flavor character. Using the new products, even more difficult, especially when this is the only, third time we've used them. Mm-hmm. And the only time where we've really used maybe too much.
But you learn, that's the thing. I guess you learn from using too much, as you say, or more than you expected. And what have you learned from that in terms of the impact on the beer?
Yeah, definitely learned a lot. I think, and OJ said before, and probably going to be the theme of the day, is that it really, really benefits that layering, I think, like probably even 50, 60% pellet usage just with that top up, really as like a top note booster to build, I guess, that hop image in the beer without having to go through massive, massive losses in your brewing process.
And what brewing conditions do you think, from your experience, deliver the best aroma and flavor results from a product like this?
So building on that again, we added in towards the end of fermentation, so a couple of degrees just below terminal gravity. We added it, I think the beer was about 15 degrees, which we intended. The reason we chose to add it in then before chilling was hoping to kind of get a bit more homogeneity and like dispersion through the beer. Other than that, I guess, yeah, building up a base that it can really just add that next level of hop character on top of.
We might bring Lindsy back now, who's hopefully had a chance to try the two of them together. And how have you found the pairing works, Lindsy?
Beautifully. I really like this pairing. I like having like a healthy snack with beers. Like having hummus and beer is just, it's fun. It's I still think it brings out that citrus. I'm really digging the beer. Yeah.
So we should stick to better for you snacks and leave the better for you beers alone.
I mean, you do you.
Right, we might move on. Alex Grant, head brewer at Hobart Brewing Company. I didn't introduce you properly, so I'll at least dismiss you properly. Thank you so much, and thank you again for another cracking Pilsner.
Cheers, mate.
You are dismissed.
You're well dismissed, gentlemen. Patted on the back, shown the door very gently. And having already introduced him, I'll now introduce Jared Boss, lead brewer at Sydney Brewer, who we're going to try his Taste Like Holidays Hazy Pale Ale, featuring El Dorado, Incognito, and Victoria's Secret Spectrum. And Lindsay, you've paired it with peckish, tangy barbecue rice crackers.
Yeah, and hear me out on this. Rice crackers, they don't often go well with like dry hoppy beers. The texture gets all weird in your mouth. It's like the rice cracker kind of coagulates. I eat a lot of snacks and I pair them with a lot of beers. So I've learned this over time. It's hard to find something that pairs with a rice cracker. But I'm super stoked about this one. I think it's something to do with the barbecue flavor not being dominating and overpowering. It's just lightly there. For me, I'm just tasting this again now. The tomato and kind of like spice flavor in the barbecue brings out so much more pine and dank resinous characters in the beer that you don't really get there when you're drinking the beer itself. I really find that this pairing does a complete like 180. It is it's really fun. The aromas on this beer, the tropical pineapple stone fruit, the pillowy mouthfeel is incredible. And then all of a sudden you have a rice cracker, the barbecue rice cracker, and it's just like, what, am I still drinking the same beer? I think it completely warps and changes. That's cool.
Sounds good. Jared, have you had a chance to, well, maybe before we find out about the pairing, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your approach to making this beer.
Yeah, so basically we were hoping to pick a popular style that everyone's going for at the moment, and everyone knows that hazies are quite a popular style. And we wanted to just use that flowable product in that style to see the results. It was our first time ever using flowable products. We were actually lucky enough to have Michael Capaldo himself come in and help out with the brew, which was a lovely experience. So basically we were going for that, as mentioned, pineapple, tropical stone fruit. We threw in a little bit of Sabro as well to get that little bit of coconut in there, and just give you that, I guess, taste of holidays, really.
You say it was the first time you'd used the flowable products. What stopped you from using them before now?
Look, we generally don't do a huge amount of seasonals and limited releases. So we've never really had the need to sort of experiment too much with these different products and the new products coming out. And given this opportunity, we jumped straight on it and got working on the recipe pretty quickly.
Sydney Brewery's got a great track record with winning awards for the beers. As you say, you don't release a lot of varieties that some breweries have. Does an opportunity to do this sort of, for want of a better term, novelty or purpose brewed beer, let you exercise your creative muscles a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. As mentioned, look, we've won a few awards in the past for our core range beers, and we do those really well. And as a brewer, the creativity wants to come out, and like when we do get the opportunity, we go for it and give it everything we got. And I feel as though this beer we actually did pretty well with it and hit sort of our targets and what we were hoping for.
The tasting note that I've been given, and I'm still trying to catch up to this beer, working my way through the Pilsner, but the tasting note that I've got is dank and refreshing pineapple and pine. That sounds like classic, craft pale ale territory there. Do you find that, with hops, the more the merrier, whether it's pellets or whether it's a liquid format?
Yeah, look, in today's society with beer, look, a lot of people like a lot of hops, and they want that really punchy, hot beers. But as we've seen before, a couple of Pilsners coming through prior, which is really good to see. We just really wanted to sort of, go hard on those tropical stone fruits and, give it a good go.
OJ, we've talked a little bit about Spectrum so far on the broadcast, but just give us a little bit of an insight into Incognito.
Yeah, absolutely. So we use the El Dorado Incognito in our whirlpool. So basically, the start of our whirlpool. We threw it in. We let it run for 15 minutes in the whirlpool, and basically that was one of the only hops in the whirlpool, and the volume we got out of the kettle was unbelievable. Normally we are left with a lot of, trub and protein matter down the bottom. We basically ran the kettle dry at the end, and got absolute maximum volume out of the brew.
OJ, I might go back to you for that one and just explain a little bit about what the intent of Incognito is when we're seeing it used like this.
There you go, Jared. Hey, mate, well done. Great beer. Really enjoyed this one. The only thing that leaves a bad taste in the mouth is you giving Michael Capaldo's ego a rub. It's hard to stomach sometimes.
Well, I want to know whether he was wearing a cape or not.
Oh, it's possible. Look, Incognito, yeah. Where we talk about Spectrum as dedicated for cold side applications, the Incognito product is in some ways a more simple product, more closely related to a straight CO2 extract, although the process is tightly controlled, and it's definitely most suited to hot side. So that aids that solubility issue as Incognito comes in with slightly higher alphas, higher viscosity, etc. So we've definitely got these two products where we're saying Spectrum for the cold side, Incognito for the whirlpool or very late boil. The other benefits, the physical attributes of using them in terms of, as Jared said, trub reduction, etc., beer recovery or wort recovery, definitely the same.
Jared, how have you found, again, given it's your first experience with it, do you think it is something that you can utilize in your core range, or would you look at using them again?
Yeah, absolutely. As Sean was mentioning earlier, I do think the product is true to style. It's represents the pellet quite well. I believe as well that if you had an existing recipe, I do feel as though you could start to substitute these new products into your recipes and maybe start to reduce the amount of pellet going in. You will, like we found, the volumes we got, as Sean mentioned earlier, were much higher. And look, even if you get 1 to 2 extra kegs out of that, you sell that over your own bar, and that's quite a valuable sort of saving there. So, yeah, look, I do think it's something that we could start to utilize and slowly blend into the recipes we've got. It might take a little bit of time to work out volumes and usage, but yeah, I definitely think it's possible.
Well, terrific. Well, again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Tastes like holidays hazy pale ale. I'm going to get to it very, very shortly, but congratulations and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Now, let's go back to Lindsay. Any last comments on that pairing, Lindsay, and how it went with the rice crackers?
No, I really enjoyed it. I think it's an example of what you can do with a pairing, and how you can take a journey. So, yeah, I'm excited to hear what other people think. I'd ask you, but you're still on the first beer.
No, I'm on the second beer. I'm going to wait till I'm off screen so I can sort of start clearing some of my tasting table. But Owen, you had your hand up. Yes.
Yeah, if I could just ask a question. No, what I was going to say was that we've actually, like in the back-to-back food pairings, I'm just looking at the plate of snacks down here. You come off that pesto, which is really quite oily, right? And then into a slightly heavier beer with just a simple dry cracker as a pairing, and I know where my preference is. This rice cracker pairing is way more my style than the pesto.
We haven't had the pesto yet.
What? Yeah.
We did the hummus first. The pesto hasn't come yet.
Not pesto, hummus, sorry.
Oh, the hummus.
He doesn't know his condiments.
We're not there yet. So.
Yeah. But yeah, this what I noticed about this pairing was that the beer in kind of like in that retronasal thing, you know, after you've had both cracker and beer, the long tail of the beer was quite different, which was quite interesting compared to getting to know the beer before the food.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things about beer and food pairings is the surprising things that, and not that we're experiencing any today, but even a bad match or a clash can reveal a whole lot about a beer that you wouldn't have tasted otherwise. And you discover a lot about the complexity of flavor that beer has whenever you're trying beer with food.
Yeah, for sure. And I would actually recommend trying the rice cracker with some of the drier beers that we get to a bit later, because I think you will see a bad pairing.
Now, moving ahead to the next one, we're about to hear from Rory Taylor, the production manager from Sawmill. But before we do, Lindsay, banana bread. That sounds like we have banana bread beers, but you've actually gone banana bread.
Yeah, I've gone straight banana bread. Look, when I was putting this pairing together, because there's 8 beers and there were 8 snacks I had to pair with it, my idea is just like stuff that you might have on a picnic, or that people might bring to a picnic, since we're hopefully getting to warmer weather. And I don't know, banana bread is one of those things that somebody just like picks up at the shop last minute before they go to a picnic. So this Sawmill beer is so tropical and fruity, and once again you're getting that pillowy, billowy mouthfeel. And the banana bread just slides right in and adds to that kind of tropical feeling with it. And I think that's all I really need to say on that. I would recommend having I personally prefer the banana bread first and then the beer, but it's up to you.
Okay. Do we butter our banana bread?
No. I haven't tried it. That would
just checking some,
because then we're talking, are you using salted butter, unsalted butter? Is it cultured butter? What brand of butter is it? Is it from France? Is it, there's too many variables.
Let's strip out some of those variables and go to Rory Taylor, production manager at Sawmill, to tell us about the Hazy Pale Ale featuring Eclipse Spectrum. Welcome, Rory. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's good to be the one brewer flying the flag for the Kiwis over the ditch. So great to be here.
Now, before we talk beer, is that an actual backdrop, or have you got a photo behind you?
No, that is just a Zoom backdrop. It is actually a photo of the brewery, though. So it is a real thing.
And OJ's not outstanding in his field, is he? You've got okay.
I'd have to be a lot smart. I'd have to be a lot smarter to be outstanding in my field.
Anyway, Rory, tell us a little bit about the Hazy Pale Ale using Eclipse Spectrum.
Yeah, so kind of, I guess, similar to Jared previously, we're still well and truly in the haze craze in New Zealand, and we wanted to do something a little bit different, not just down the full-on tropical fruit bomb. And we've used the Eclipse pellets for a couple of years now. We actually used them when they were still a trial hop back in 2020. So to have the opportunity to try it in Spectrum was something we were pretty keen to try. Also, being a New Zealand brewer, we couldn't have a beer go over the ditch without sneaking a bit of Kiwi hops in there. So there's a bit of Motueka hops in there, which we always find is a really good companion for other hops. It's got really nice companion kind of characteristics where it helps elevate the other hops in the beer. And the Eclipse, we just love the character of it. Nice and tropical, but also has some really nice citrus notes with the kind of mandarin notes that it comes through. So yeah, we're really happy with how it came through.
A couple of the brewers that we've heard from today, it's been a novel first use of flowable hops. Have you got experience in using them before?
A little bit. It's probably the first one that we've used that's been more of a dry hop substitute. We've used them a little bit as a hot side addition or as a bright tank post fermentation addition, but we use this as a mid fermentation addition to try and get a bit of biotransformation from the hop addition as well, which we think worked really well. A bit more convection in the tank when it is mid fermentation helps with the dispersibility even more. So we were really impressed with how that flavor came through.
One of the things that we've heard a number of times was the efficiency gains that brewers have found, and unprompted, the 2 to 3 extra kegs that some brewers have found that they can get. Did you find similar using it?
Yeah, we did use it with pellets in the dry hop, so we probably didn't get the same magnitude of increased efficiencies, but we did definitely see I think it was about 2 to 3% more yield from using the Spectrum, which might not sound like a lot, but at the end of the day, if that's an extra 2 or 3 kegs, then that's all money in the bank.
OJ, did you want to throw any questions to Rory on this one?
Not questions necessarily, but just a comment about the full benefit, so to speak, from Spectrum. So like you'll just get proportional reduction in wort or beer losses, the more hop pellet is replaced by something like Spectrum. But the thing you do lose critically with 100% liquid dry hop is that you don't have to deal with hop creep. As soon as you get that pellet addition back in, then you kind of forego that other benefit. So just a practical comment there, really.
Okay, Rory, did you have any observations on that?
I think for us, because we are dry hopping while the beer is still fermenting, that hop creep is less apparent, which does help deal with it. That's more of a I guess operational necessity for us than anything. But it is a really good point around being really cognizant of that hop creep and not having that to have to worry about is great.
This is actually just a question for me that's not actually about hop extracts or anything, but you did mention that hazies are still big in New Zealand, as they are here. But we've also led off with 2 pilsners. How are lagers going across the ditch?
I mean, Pilsner's still our biggest volume beer that we produce, but I think we'd probably be the only brewery in the country that has those kind of numbers. There is definitely a lot more breweries putting out the West Coast style Pilsners, IPLs, cold IPAs, those style of beers that are more on the lager side than on the hazy side. But a lot of them are brewers making what we want to drink, not necessarily what the customer always wants to drink. So sometimes you just got to keep the customers happy, and if they make hazies, we'll make hazies that we want to drink as well.
You didn't toy with the idea of making a pilsner for this mixed pack?
Oh, we always put it out there, but it's battling past the marketing and sales team. That's the hard part.
Any other thoughts about Eclipse Spectrum, or has it motivated you or inspired you to think ahead to other beers you might like to brew with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we definitely will be putting through our pilot kit to get a good assessment on where we can fit it into our core range beers as well. As has already been mentioned, the efficiency gains are pretty apparent, and especially for a brewery like us, we take a real pride in our sustainability and efficiency aspects of our brewery. So to be able to assess that and see how we can bring it into our core range will be something we're really looking forward to.
Terrific. Well, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on the Hazy Pale Ale featuring Eclipse Spectrum. Did you get? I'm presuming you got a pack with all of the other beers.
I haven't seen anything yet. I've just been drinking had a can before we jumped on the course, so I could make sure that I knew what I was talking about.
So I'd never ask a question that you don't know the answer to is the rule. But I was just going to see what other beers you'd enjoyed from the pack. But
New Zealand customs, just they must have nabbed it.
Oh yeah, I know Ado's over here next week, so I'll bail him up when he gets here.
100%.
We'll take that question on notice and come back to you. But Rory Taylor, production manager from Sawmill, thank you so much for joining us for the tasting this afternoon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
OJ, What are your thoughts? What are your takeaways so far from the first couple of beers that we've done?
Well, from my perspective, that purpose of the pack springs to mind, and I'm really enjoying the the hop performance. I'm also enjoying hearing the brewers talk about the practical application side, and I think Rory just said just then that the beer savings or wort recovery is quite noticeable. Like that's a good piece of proof of concept from where I stand. So you've got that performance piece and the espoused economic benefits of these products as well. So the beers are flying, and I think the products are standing up really well. So yeah, pretty stoked so far. Let's find out how the others go.
Well, we're halfway through, so but no, look, I'm really interested in the number of brewers that don't have great experience in using these products before, and the way that they have implemented them, and also the results that they've shown. Which again, you've obviously given it to a number of very good brewers who are able to perform like that. But the beers have certainly delivered as showcases for the products.
Yeah, you can't take away from the talented people we've got making these beers in collaboration with us. They're fantastic. But I would say that if there are other people in the trade listening in, our entire sales and technical support team is designed to be able to help you use these. And every single one of our sales guys is an ex-brewer themselves. So there's plenty of assistance out there. If you want to try these products, just give us a shout and we can help out.
How do you go about putting up a panel of brewers for a mixed pack like this?
It's really multi-factor. We're really quite sensitive to the timing of this. Because people are coming into summer. So, I guess on the deselection side, we're really sensitive to people who are just unable to squeeze another tank cycle in or whatever. So we really do appreciate those who, engage with us on this pack. We understand the burden and one-off beers and the risk in one-off beers and all of that stuff in the production space. So we're immensely grateful for the collaborators that do put their hand up to have a crack at these for the mix pack.
We might move on to the next snack, which I'm really wishing I had because this sounds fascinating. Lindsay, we're about to hear from Nat Reeves, but you've paired nice and natural vanilla thick shake bars with the beer that is, which is you describe as a lunchbox treat for adults, the vanilla. So talk to me about this one.
Yeah, well, look, I'm a really big fan of like muesli bars and repurposing children's treats. Like, I don't have kids, but I know a lot of people do. So I think it's a fun idea to raid your child's snacks. I mean, I would be doing that all the time if I had a child. I would eat all of their snacks. But I'm a really big fan of muesli bars and like oat snacks like hobnobs. We had hobnobs last year on the stream. And I think they go really well with hop forward beers, because if we think of something like a New England IPA and hazies, that's something that has a lot of oats and a lot of pillowy mouthfeels. And that's exactly what we're going to be getting from muesli bars and these kind of like granola bars, as I would call them. So yeah, these snacks are pretty much the body of what a New England IPA is. And I love Kaiju's beers. And I know that Nat likes really dank styles. I know he likes dank hops. He does them really well. And as an XPA, I was so excited to kind of put this into the, like with an oat to kind of add some more body and bring out some more of that hop character. Cause that's like, this is an example of where you can go with pairings. If you're like, oh, well, we started moving into this like hazy category where everything had a lot of oats and lactose, etc. There's a reason why we started doing that with heavily hopped beers, and it was to kind of emphasize the hop characters and the hop flavors. So, yeah, that's where this is going.
Well, let's hear from the brewer, Nat Reeves, founder and head brewer from Kaiju. Welcome along, Nat. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Before we start, I should wish you a happy 10th birthday at Kaiju.
Yeah, it's been an arduous decade, I guess.
And yet you haven't aged a bit.
No, and Owen has heard me say this, or OJ's heard me say this to him before, but part of the reason that Kaiju exists is because of OJ and his the Moo Brew Pale Ale, which I couldn't afford to buy, so I decided to try and make it for myself all those years ago. So
I shouldn't. I was going to say this because yesterday a package turned up, OJ, of the OG remakes of the OG Moo Brew beers, the Pilsner, the Pale, and the Dark Ale. So maybe, Nat, I need to send. I'm very interested in trying the Pilsner, and the Dark is spoken for, but I can send you a bottle of the Pale, so you can reminisce with one of the classic old Moo Brew bottles, if you like.
I need to get one of those. That is for sure. I love those little champagne bottles. They're super cool.
Anyway, that was very off topic, but tell us about, speaking of very familiar, the Guy Incognito, which with the very, very distinctive Kaiju packaging. It's you can't open the fridge without recognizing exactly who made the beer. Yeah,
I mean it's when I heard there was a product that had Incognito into it, first thing I wanted to do was just make a beer called Guy Incognito. So when HPA asked us to do this, I was just like, yeah, I am putting some Incognito in there, and I'm making this stupid can that, that dude, he's definitely not the guy that you think he is at all.
Yeah. Now, XPA, talk us, because we've already heard Lindsy talked about dank. XPA often aren't associated with dank. What was your decision process for making an XPA for this beer?
Well, I never really think about an XPA being like that it has to be tropical or citrusy or dank or what. It's, for me, XPA is more of a balance on the palate, and obviously being an ale. I'd like to think that Crush is almost an XPA in a way. So I'm more than happy to chuck dank hops into something that's an XPA, and we've never really done anything that we would call an XPA, as in on the label. Because I mean, everything's just kind of a marketing term these days anyway, isn't
it? 10 years in and cynical.
That's me.
That's my job.
Yeah. That's how we get along, Matt.
Now, a number of the brewers we've spoken to have very early in their history of using some of the flowable products. What's your experience with using these previously?
So, as far as using the actual HPA products, this was our first time using it, and I was super excited about that. We have used we used one of the competitors' products, and we use it in Aftermath. And I found that when we started using that, and it's a replacement for Columbus in the kettle on Aftermath, that we just had the flavor just stayed and it stuck, and the resin level was just next level. It elevated that mouthfeel that I loved so much, that resin, and sustained it even as the beer gets older, and the hop aroma dies off, the flavor just stays. And I have found that with Incognito, we're getting a very, very similar thing, like that. Just that flavor just stays. I mean, I know this beer is only a month old, but you really get that flavor, and it's like it's really got this nice resin, nice oiliness to it, but it doesn't seem fake or anything. It's just like it. If someone handed me the beer didn't tell me that there was anything that wasn't just hop pellets, I would have absolutely no idea.
We are seeing the market, over 10 years, we've seen the market evolve drastically. In fact, I think there may even be a quote somewhere on Brews News that Kaiju was never going to make a beer lower than 7% or even 8%. It might have been when you launched, and yet here we are drinking a 5.2% beer that really delivers on hops. how important is it for brewers to stay open to, emerging market trends and also, techniques and ingredients?
It's very important. I mean, we wouldn't still have a business if we had have stuck by my philosophy. So yeah, I've said a lot of things that I've done the exact opposite of.
But that was where the market was at the time, and that's why it's so important to hear your thoughts on evolution and being willing to embrace new things.
Yeah, well, I mean, Callum and we didn't pay ourselves until we released Crush. So yeah, I mean, that was a very important part of our history. And so once you kind of you go down below 5%, well, I mean, you can just go to any alcohol content you want then, can't you? But yeah, I think it's important to have products that people can drink more than one of. Yeah, I used to be, very much like, well, we wanted to make flavor bombs so that people would buy a bottle of it, and they were 500 ml bottles, and they were all high ABV. So it's like, buy a bottle, share it with your friends. But that is like a really shit commercial idea. But it was, it was the way that I drank beer back then, and it was just kind of the thing, And so it is very important to have something like that. And also at the time, we didn't have the capacity to do that. We were, brewing out of Cavalier, so it was. We had 2 fermenters there, so we had 70 hectoliters basically of capacity. So we had to make big things, and I mean, that's all I wanted to drink anyway. So that was what we did.
But you did say it's important to think commercially. To start. How do products like Incognito, do you think, aid brewers working commercially? Yeah,
well, I mean, the yields that you get. And Incognito is obviously just a kettle edition, or the Whirlpool edition. So we only, I think we used 3 kilos of pellets in the kettle. That's because we just wanted to put a bit of Amarillo in there, just to kind of. I'm going to go. If I start talking about that, I'm going to get really sidetracked. So the yield on the kettle was really good. So. It's great to use those products for things like that, because as Sean was saying earlier, with dry hopping and stuff, even with the centrifuge, you don't get back that you don't get back all that vegetative matter that you put in there always takes beer away. It doesn't matter what happens, and whether that's in the kettle or in the fermenter or wherever, you're going to lose lots of product, and that's a lot of money.
And that's a very important thing. But do you find that products like this offer consistency of flavor, or consistency of batch to batch consistency?
Well, yes, products like this do, and this is the only time that we've used on Incognito. But the other ones that we have used, and it's I'm sorry that I'm going off track like this, and not just saying HPA, but we do get greater consistency from using liquid products, or just hop products rather than hop. I know a hop pellet is a hop product, but we get better consistency like that. And it's the same throughout all drinks and food industries. When you use the refined product, you get better consistency. It's just that's the thing. I mean, it's a problem that we have with our cider, is like that. That's all fresh apple juice, and so you've got to be dealing with acidities and and differing sugar levels and stuff to try and make this product as similar as possible every time. But if you're using an extract, you can be a lot more consistent. So it's the same thing with hop products. Like the more consistent they are, the easier it is to make the same product again and again.
Well, Nat, I have to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I've been loving the Guy Incognito, having finally caught up with the rest of the tasting. So I'm glad I did on this beer. Well done.
Thank you. And yes, we do plan on using more of the Incognito going forward, as long as OJ will let me modify some more hops in my hop contract. So
we're here to help.
Nicely slipped in. We've got it on record now.
That's just about a sledge. That's nearly a sledge.
He said a lot of nice things. I think he's earned that one. So
he buttered me up. He really laid it on thick.
Yeah.
That was French salted butter right at the start.
What do they say? 2 slices of bread and something in the middle. Nat Reeves, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on the Guy Incognito. And I'll let you and OJ take this off mic.
Thanks.
Owen, I was going to ask you something, but Nat stole my thunder. We have heard a lot about efficiency this afternoon, but consistency is another big selling point for products like this.
Yeah, and Nat actually mentioned it with the reference to the cider. You know, agricultural products are a bloody frustrating variable thing. We have our own unique, perspective on how HPA goes about creating consistent hop performance, and there's more on our attitudes to things like hop selections on the hops.com.au website. You can go and look up some of our articles. You can go to Brews News and search the catalogue there, and there's plenty of commentary about hop selection. But he's also right in the sense that the more refined products do offer an opportunity to standardise some of their sort of key chemical attributes. Whether that's something like flex for kettle bittering, becomes very predictable. It's at effectively a set alpha acid content. And once you know, I can't remember who said it earlier, once you know the performance of these products, you can really trust them and measure them out to the milliliter and go from there. So consistency is a really important part of it.
And again, the conversations that I'm hearing as I get around the brewing industry are very, very different from what they were 10 years ago, for example, when Kaiju started, or even earlier, when I remember a very famous beer writer saying consistency isn't the god of brewing. But I think for consumers, consistency is increasingly important.
I've always advocated for brewers to keep in mind the consumer confidence piece, and if they love your beer, and a month later they come back to the fridge to pull it off the shelf, you have to acknowledge that there is some real world pressure for consistency delivered to the consumer.
And I won't go down the rabbit hole of hop selections, but we will be posting a very interesting article about hop selections very, very shortly. So anyone who's interested in that can watch out for that. Now, I'm looking ahead, Lindsay, because we've still got 2 more beers to go after this one, and yet we're well and truly into the dessert course. Hopefully we're going to get some sorbet or something like that to cleanse our palates after the Murray River salted caramel Tim Tams.
No. This is a great break, by the way. It's really fun to shock your palate so that you start tasting a little bit better down the road. I don't know if that's actually a thing. I just made that up right now. So shock your palate, shock away. I'm stoked for this pairing just because it's often I don't get a lot of kind of malt forward beers or malty beers. This is definitely a little more, it's a different style than we often see in these packs, although still emphasizing the hop characters. And here we kind of see the salt and caramel of the Tim Tam lose some of its intensity, because it is quite an intense snack. So I do recommend having the Tim Tam first and chasing it with the beer, because we see it lose its intensity. It's like the chocolate, the salt, and the caramel latches on to the malt character, and then it kind of allows once again, I'm a broken record. It allows the hop character to shine, the pine to really come through. So everything kind of drops out and then intensifies with the pine, which for me makes it quite moreish.
And I made jest of asking whether there was the traditional palate cleanser that sorbet can provide. But of course, one of the great things about having beer and food pairings that we often hear from cheese people is that wine doesn't cut through the richness of something like cheese or chocolate. It doesn't have the bitterness and it doesn't have the carbonation to really cleanse the palate. So we can have a little bit of fun of having caramel Tim Tams before we then go on to having pesto dip, and still have palates that are fresh enough to taste the subtlety between them.
Yeah, the carbonation really is key for sure, and just contrast of flavors, and although I don't think this is like a really intense pairing. It'll be interesting to see it side by side with the basil pesto, but yeah, break rules.
Wonderful. Well, we might introduce Jack Leadingham, the brewer at Tallboy and Moose. Jack, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Alan.
Now, Spruce Springsteen, I love the label. Again, as soon as I opened the fridge, I knew exactly what we were referencing. A wonderful homage to a very famous album cover. But tell us about the Spruce Springsteen American Strong Ale featuring Centennial, Incognito, Mosaic, and Spectrum.
So this was sort of born from the team here at Tallboy Moose their palates being a bit tired of hazy IPAs and the big fruity, juicy, fruit forward IPAs. So we wanted to do something closer to, classic American West Coast, but then dial it back to that American Strong Ale, really focus on that sort of citrus, grapefruit, and then the piney resin dank character, but also have it in sort of, that closer to drinkable ABV range of that sort of 5.5%. Make it, a sessionable American West Coast strong pale. Yeah.
Matt, I'll jump in there if you like. Jack, good beer, mate. Well done. Really enjoy it. This takes me back to like the heartland of my favorite beer styles. It's not too boozy, but it's got all that hop character and that real flavor intensity. So well done. I really enjoy this beer. It's quite interesting the way a beer like this progresses on the palate. And one of the things I want to ask you is whether or not you think that the products that went into this beer are close to what you expected from the T90s. If you had made this beer with T90s, do you think it'd be the same?
I think we would get, similar characteristics. We did layer in T90s as well. So we had Columbus that we layered in to really sort of spike up that sort of dank, piney characteristics. But then that's sort of the Centennial Incognito and then the Mosaic Spectrum add a lot of that rich grapefruit citrus characteristics, and then again more pine and dank character.
Yeah, I think that's where my head was going, that grapefruit note, and the kind of, the grapefruit bitterness is quite bright, and I did sort of wonder in my musings whether Centennial and Mosaic as a combo would give you that intensity of grapefruit, or whether this was a subtlety of the product.
Yeah, look, our whole recipe development process is a little bit of, trial and error. We focus on a lot of, seasonals. We have 2 beers in our core range at the moment. So this was as much of a trial for us as it was for HBA. We've used Spectrum before in hazy IPAs. But yeah, we were really excited to use it in a more malt-driven and that sort of dank citrus, piney, resinous, pale ale IPA.
Nice one, mate. Delicious.
Jack, when you approach recipe development for something like this, did the beer lead the hop selection, or did the hop selection drive the beer that you wanted to make?
It was really the recipe development. Yeah, so we wanted to make something that was, grapefruit characteristics, nice sort of dank pine resin. So then the hop selection was based on what we wanted from the end product. And then we built the rest of the beer around that. So I think the malty backbone plays a key element in this beer. I don't think with a lighter malt base, we would get the characteristics that we really wanted from this beer.
And again, it's become a standard question for every brewer. Do you have much experience in working with the liquid hops or the flowable hops before the experiments that were in this pack?
Tall Boy and Moose themselves have done a couple of beers, not me personally, with Spectrum, and we've used them in hazy IPAs on the cold side, and we've got good results from that. And obviously, as everyone else has been saying, we've got good yield from all those beers. It's been great being able to make a heavily hopped IPA and then still getting a ridiculous amount of beer out of it. And you keep on count as you're doing the kegs. You're like, oh, that's like a free keg that we didn't expect, and then that's another one. And that's essentially our profit margin on that beer at that point.
That's a great point. And do you find, I'm finding that the beers, even when they've got a high hop load or they've got a lot of intensity of flavor, not getting the astringency I found a few years ago in some of the very similar styles. Is that what you find with the flowable hop extracts?
I think you get less of that sort of potential vegetal character when you push that T90 edition up really high. Without flowable hop products, you do get sort of that vegetal tannic astringency that comes from using a lot of vegetable matter in the cold side. And I think flowable hop products, you don't get that.
And my read of what I'm hearing of the industry is that that's one of the things that consumers are looking for, that they don't necessarily want that very tannic, very sharp hop character. They love the flavor, but not some of the characters that can come with it.
Yeah, I think palates have sort of progressed to a point where they're not, consumers are looking for something that's not going to come across, astringent. It's not going to be tiring as you drink it. They're looking for those real soft, big fruit, forward characteristics. Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, again, great beer, great packaging. One of the things we hear a lot about these days. OJ, was there anything else you wanted before we let Jack go?
I actually just wanted to say that I thought the food pairing was the snack pairing was actually really interesting too. The both contrary to Lindsay's commentary around it being not too intense, I found both beer and Tim Tam really intense, but they had this sort of almost this deconstructive interference where they came back to the middle when you've had both and go back for another beer. That it was really really interesting to see the way it mellowed out and changed.
Wonderful. Now, I should say that anyone who has tried the beers once, there are still packs available from Beer Cartel. Am I right?
You are right,
for a limited time only.
Have a sneaking suspicion that won't be for much longer.
So anyone that wants to try them, and I highly recommend anyone that didn't get them before this podcast or before this broadcast, get them, because there are some really, really interesting expressions, not only of the hops, but of the styles. I'm enjoying very much. Jack Lettingham, brewer, Tall Boy Moose, thank you very much for joining us for this broadcast this afternoon.
Amazing. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Owen.
Wonderful. Now, I'll welcome back Lindsay to tell us, we've gone from the sweet to the pesto, Red Rock Deli basil pesto dip, and Captain's Table back to the water crackers. Talk us through this one, Lindsay.
Yeah, look, this is a weird time. I'm not really going to lie. It's a weird time. Yeah, so I find what is interesting about it, and what I made in my notes initially that made me want to go forward with it, is just this kind of sweet red berry character gets more intensified when you have the dip first. There's something that happens in the palate. It goes weird red berry, not weird, it's nice. It goes red berry, and then it punches you with garlic. So it's like you go pesto dip and then finish on beer, even though you're going pesto dip beer. So it's like a nice little, what's the toy that you hit the ball with? I definitely recommend doing it in that order. Yeah, it because of the garlic finish, it makes you want to go back for a little bit more to have that berry character again. I love pairings that do that. Anything that creates kind of a moreish character or that people have to think about a little bit more. Hot tip, offer these things in your tap room, because then if something's really weird, people will drink it and be like, oh, I'm having a snack. That's so weird. I'm going back for it and back and forth. I can't figure it out. And maybe they'll buy another one. I don't know.
That's a great tip. And it's not often something that we think about in the hospitality setting of breweries. And a lot of these pairings would be very easy to offer up as a partnership at the point of sale.
Yeah, super easy. Low price points as well. Doesn't require a chef because they're already pre-made. So I think it's something fun to offer consumers. I think something I find as a consumer is going beer shopping is quite overwhelming. Sometimes still going to tap rooms is overwhelming, and everyone's a little bit price cautious at the moment. So maybe they don't want to purchase a full pairing dinner. Maybe they just do want a little bite that will give them a good experience, and they can walk away being like, oh, I want to do more things like that. Yeah, please do it.
Now, I'm glad just before you gave such a comprehensive explanation for the pairing, because I was able to duck out to the fridge and get a can of this beer that we're about to try. So we might bring in the brewer, James Ditko, head brewer at Bridge Road, to talk about the liquid cold. Now, my notes say liquid cold. Is it liquid cold or liquid gold? Liquid cold. It is liquid cold. It's not a typo.
Yes.
Liquid cold IPA featuring Mosaic and Galaxy Spectrum. James, welcome to the podcast this afternoon, and congratulations on the beer.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on here.
So, cold IPA is very much, pardon the pun, flavor of the month. What led you to choose this with the Mosaic and Galaxy Spectrum?
I think we were just looking to do something a bit different. Usually when we've done a few of these packs before, and we've done one-off beers with, other breweries, and everyone, obviously it didn't happen this time, but everyone kind of tends towards the hazy styles and all that sort of stuff. So we thought we'd do something different. I think it also coincided. We just served some beers over at Firestone Walk Invitational. Ben went over and served those and had a bunch of really, really good cold IPAs over there, which sort of reintroduced us to the style. So if I won't get into the discussion about whether it's a style or not, but had some really good ones and thought we'd give it another crack.
I think we can touch on whether it's a style or not. If people know what to expect when they read cold IPA, I think we can count it as a style. If it tells the consumer what they're going to get, I think we can say that that's stylish enough.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
This is a segue that could go into another podcast. Quick,
that's exactly what I was trying to avoid.
Absolutely. Anyway, so the tasting notes are big passion fruit, tropical and citrus, followed by Australian floral and red belly vibes. Standard question for everybody: Have you got much use in using the flowable hop products before this variety pack?
So probably unlike a lot of the other brewers on here, I actually do. We've been using them on and off a little bit over the last 12 months or so. We haven't moved it into any of the core range, but it is something I'm interested in doing. We've seen really good results. Find it ages a lot better. You get some really, really vibrant, true to style hop characters that sort of stick around a bit longer than traditional T90. Same as what everyone else said, higher yields. While it is more expensive, I think the yield and the aging aspect outweighs the expense. Obviously, Bath Haas HPA are selecting the best possible hops to create these products as well. So you are getting a really, really good representation of the hop.
Was there much of a mind shift involved in moving towards these products, or was it very much just an obvious choice for you?
It's definitely a change. I mean, all the processes have to change. The way you use them, trying to minimize DO pickup, where you use them in the process. I actually had a discussion with OJ and Phil about using Spectrum hot side, which I wanted to do for this beer, but was advised against it. But I just think, it has all those changes to process and the way you use it. I think there's some really big advantages for smaller breweries that may not have a good way to put large volumes of hops into their fermenters, because you're using probably 1/8 of the volume of hop as what you would of T90. So it actually becomes a lot more simple process-wise in the brewery.
And with the fairly lean malt profile, which is very different to the last beer that we had, do you find that you change the way that you use these hops in a leaner malt bill?
Definitely. I mean, we use a lot less. I mean, moving not specifically to this beer, but talking about Aussie hops in general, they come from a really high alpha rootstock. So we use a lot of Aussie hops, and you got to be careful not to use too many. If you go too hard on them, like a few people are talking around that 30 grams a litre or above, if you've got a lean malt profile and you're using 30 grams a litre of Aussie hops, you're getting a lot of that astringency, grassy character, really cold side bitterness coming through. So I try to be a lot more restrained when it comes to the Aussie hops, which is probably something that I really like about Spectrum, because you can still go to the same level with your T90s, and then you can boost it again with Spectrum without putting that green matter, the astringency, or that bitterness in the beer.
That we've heard a little bit. OJ, that must be music to your ears to hear brewers adopting them and using them consistently.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with, because explanation of that, cautionary tale about the use of high alpha hops, Aussie or otherwise, but for the Aussie example, you've got a hop like Topaz sitting consistently above 20% alpha. And if you think you're going to put 30 grams a litre in your cold side, you're just charging up so much unisomerized alpha. You're going to get some burn. So there is that sense of restraint around modern high alpha hops for flavour. Layering in some Spectrum, for a bit of a boost at the end of the day is absolutely a great idea. But yeah, I think our really long run experience with James and with Bridge Road in general is has been a real proof of concept for HPA. Obviously, we're up there in the high country together, just down the road from the hop farms. Some wonderful ability to scale R&D and NPD projects and collaborate with us like this. So, James, very, very grateful, mate. Thank you to you and Ben and the team for leaning into this once again to help us deliver some great beers.
And I don't know whether I should say this, but James, he doesn't just say that on mic. It's just been one of the questions I've asked OJ in the past, because of the lengthy collaborations that HPA has had with Bridge Road, and that's consistency has been a word that's been often used. Consistency and experience. I hope it's okay to say that, to reveal that. That wasn't off the record, was it, OJ?
Yeah, of course. No.
No, thank you. We're always happy to get involved and try something. Like you say, we've got the ability to go from really small to really big, and we do in excess of 60 different beers in a year, as well as doing volume. So always looking to experiment and trial and do all that.
Terrific. Well, I know it sounds like a broken, but I'm trying all of these for the first time, and I'm really loving this liquid cold IPA. So congratulations, James, and thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon.
Cheers. Thank you.
Now, Lindsay, we're into the home stretch. San Marino prosciutto and Alina's pita crisps.
Yes, and paired with the Interstellar IPA from Black Hops. So, really excited for this pairing. It is a salty food. Prosciutto is quite salty. The pita crisps are salty. But what's great about beer, once again, and why it's better than wine every time, generally, is that it comes through, cuts through that salt. A lot of the fruit characters are intensified once again. The bitterness is actually a little bit intensified in this as well. And it's just, it's clean, it's nice, it's bright. Nothing is too dry on the palate. Everything is just a nice little harmony on this one. So yeah.
Terrific. Well, we might introduce Bill Foley, the brewer at Black Hops, to tell us a little bit about the Interstellar IPA featuring Citra and Mosaic Incognito and Eclipse and Galaxy Spectrum. Thank you very much for joining us, Bill. Nice to see you again. It's been a long time. There we go.
Bill was out in some interstellar space right there. He was
He
coming back.
was.
I'm back, so we're good.
Thank you, Bill. And yeah, tell us a little bit about the Interstellar IPA.
Okay, yeah. So I think we've got 5 different varieties of flowable hops in there, probably 6, including Flex, I guess. So we've gone with everything there was on offer, I suppose. And yeah, we went in a pretty high level of Incognito, slightly beyond the recommended rate to add, but it's kind of worked out really well. We were kind of afraid we'd end up with a little bit too much bitterness, but it seemed to come in quite well balanced in the end.
And can you tell us the difference in hop flavor that Incognito brings over Spectrum? Have you got experience in that?
There's definitely a difference. I suppose they're very different products, but I guess on the hot side, the Incognito is quite easy to use, really easy with our process. Obviously, we all talked about the gains we get out of our kettle using those liquid hops. So I don't know there's too much of a difference in terms of what you can get out of the Incognito versus the Spectrum hops. They're both really sort of high value, get a lot of bang for your buck out of both of those products.
Are they something that you have used regularly, or is this a fairly early introduction to the pair for you?
We've probably been using it for about 6 months now in some of our seasonal beers. A little one a while ago, one of our bi-monthly releases, was our first attempt at using Spectrum. We used Galaxy, and the aromas we got out were sort of next level. We dry hopped that beer pretty heavily with Galaxy traditional T90 hops, and then we added a Spectrum on top of that fairly late into the ferment, and the boost in aroma was noticeable. It became a different beer, raised it up to a whole new level. So we were pretty impressed with that. And I think we could have used it better as well. Having used it a bit more now, I think timing the addition of Spectrum is pretty important. You get different results whether you add it early on in fermentation rather than later on. Both positive in both ways, but we've also tried using it recently almost straight on knockout. At the moment of adding yeast, we've added Spectrum as well. And again, a different result, positive and excellent at the same time.
Terrific. Well, another great beer. We've had 8 smashing beers, and it's been a really interesting showcase of the Evenflow, the flowable hop products from HPA. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish? Will we see more from Black Hops using these products?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. I find it's really a good tool in creating something different, especially in conjunction with other hop products, to raise your beer to a whole new level. Something you couldn't just do with regular conventional hops.
Well, Bill Foley from Black Hops, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for the Evenflow tasting, and congratulations on the beer.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, just before we finish for the afternoon, I'm very conscious of time. We've kept pretty well to time. Lindsay, we've talked a lot about pairings, but of course you are a brewer. How do you find how the pairings work with the liquid hop extracts? Is it a different experience than some of the traditional hop products that brewers have used? I think you're muted.
Apologies.
We're all allowed one.
It had to be me, and I work in tech now. So yeah, I was actually quite terrified to be doing this round of pairings because of my, I think, preconceived notion. I think as brewers, we often tend to like what's known because we're producing a product that is very dependent on, you know, current crops and processes. And once you get a beer, like once you get your recipe nailed down, you want to kind of be able to reproduce that as consistent. And if you're doing that with T90 pellets, then that's what you're doing it with. And so branching over to something that is a liquid product is scary, right? It's not the tangible farm product that we're used to using, I guess. Maybe it doesn't feel as connected to the earth as sometimes brewers like to feel. Like, I love touching grain. I love hops. I love the smell of opening the bag. So I was terrified to do these pairings. I was afraid it was going to affect the mouthfeel and the flavor and the aroma and everything, but I don't really think that's the case. And I do think personally this is the way forward. And the more brewers are willing to experiment with these products, the more advancements we're going to see, really, the better things are going to get, because there has to be trial and error, right? And if you try it once and it doesn't work, you need to try it again to see if you can do better. And yeah, it's the way of the future.
And quite apart from experimenting with the flowable extracts, experiment with flavor. And congratulations on the adventure you've taken us on in terms of beer and flavor pairings this afternoon.
Oh, well, anytime. Thanks, HPA.
Hopefully same time next year.
Yeah.
But Owen Johnson, just to finish up, last one for you, a couple of ones for you. There was a really interesting point, and I can't remember who made it, but Lindsay sort of touched on it a little bit. One of the things that has really driven craft beer is the romance of ingredients and walking through hop fields. But one of the brewers mentioned that the best hops are being selected to provide the consistency of these products. So there is no remove from the hop fields when you're using these products, is there?
Yeah, it's kind of subjective, isn't it? These are all made from 100% hop material. There is literally nothing synthetic in these products. It's 100% hop derived. Flex and Incognito are good old CO2 extract based. Stripping out the alpha and the oils, leaving all the vegetative material behind. So sort of leaning into what Lindsay just said about some of that fear about performance and how the palate might change or the aromas might change. And I think there were legitimate grounds for that back in the early days of advanced hop products, and they did have somewhat of a signature taste. And I think overdosing any of these products can lead to some signature tastes, and using them outside of the scope of what they're for, can also have some implications. But in the whole, and I think that Black Hops beer at the end there from Bill was a really good example of overall a really integrated flavor profile, which didn't have any there's that tween 80 carrier, or there's that polyethylene glycol carrier that this oil's in. It's like for me there's a real confidence piece there that you can create consistent, homogeneous, integrated, whatever word you want to say about the flavor profile that you can create with these products nowadays, because they are a really significant step forward, and they won't break your snack pairing. They won't break your consumer experience. They're worth a shot. There's been some talk today of how others have gone about introducing them, and flavor matching, and I think you can achieve quite a bit in that space with a stepwise iterative approach to finding what you're happy with, and you'll start to pick up some of the benefits of these liquid products.
And I was just thinking through all of the permutations of that, and it's been exciting to hear the number of brewers that have not only tried these for the first time, but have certainly found something that they would like to try again.
Like it's been mentioned, I think the trend is the momentum is with the use of advanced products. I think brewers are interested in leaving behind some of the emotional connectivity to the earth, with respect, and let's get down to the practicalities of consistency of flavor and cost control and beer recovery and some of those wonderful manufacturing imperatives that we have.
Terrific. Well, OJ, thank you for putting this together, and the whole Hop Products Australia team for putting this together. Thank you to all of the brewers that have been involved in creating the beers. They are still available from Beer Cartel if anybody wants to get their hands on them. The pairings will be provided. Will we be posting these to socials, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Both on at
100%.
Hop Products Australia and at Talk Beardy to me. That's TALKBEERDYOTOME. Talk Beardy to me. But apart from that, thank you all for joining HPA's Even Flow Mixed Pack discussion and tasting. You can find both of the co-hosts on the socials that I just mentioned. There will be a replay. You'll be able to listen to all of the beer discussions and the pairings on socials. So keep an eye on both of those socials, and particularly Hop Products Australia's to find out more. Otherwise, thank you both for joining me on a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Lindsay. And thanks to all of our contributors. Really appreciate it, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.